my name is Elle. I'm a cross-stitch artist and designer here on TikTok, and today I'm going to be answering Arden's question. I want to know what to do for blank pattern centers. I'm really new to cross-stitch, so I don't know if what I did was actually right. So if you're working with a pattern where the actual center mark that you would usually be starting from and working your way out from there doesn't have any stitches in it, let's say perhaps you're working on like a wreath pattern. So you have a big circle with like some flowers or something like that around the outside, maybe a little bit of writing across the middle, but there's no actual stitches right there in the very center of the piece. How do you start from there? So you actually have a couple of different options, and both of them are totally valid. The first thing you could do is what the commenter under you actually suggested, where you start at the center and you count outward to something near it, and then start stitching from there, and then start using and working off of those other pieces. And that's totally a valid way to do it, and it's a very common way to sort of handle this problem. Personally, I would handle it a little bit different, but that's because I use grids. Not everybody likes to do grids on their pieces, but there are a couple different ways that you can do grids on your pieces. And for me, what I like about it is it means that I don't have to start in the center, and I can literally start anywhere on the pattern that I feel like. If you're going to put a grid on your piece, you have to decide first whether you want to put the grid on the front of your piece or whether you want to put it on the back of your piece. Personally, I like putting it on the back of my pieces. So as you can see, I've just drawn a little grid with just regular like mechanical pencil or like a regular whatever, number 2 pencil. And that way I don't have to worry about washing it off or ironing it off or any of those other things. If you are going to put the grid on the front of your piece and draw your grid here before you start stitching, you are going to want to use one of 2 things. Either a friction pen, which I actually have one of these. So friction pens like that. The cool thing about these is when you write on paper, when you erase them, they are heat erasable. So the friction created as you erase will erase this pen from paper. Now, obviously you can't really erase fabric that same way. However, you can take a blow dryer, or throw it in the dryer, like in like your clothing dryer, and the heat from that will make this ink erase because it's actually a heat erase pen or a heat erase ink. The other kind of pen that you could use that I don't have so I can't show you are water soluble pens, and they make those for fabric. You can get them at any local craft store, you can buy them online, things like that. But the water soluble ones, you just take a little bit of water and you kind of rub your piece a little bit and the ink should come right out. I personally have actually, even though I have a friction pen, I have never used a friction pen or a water soluble pen on any of my pieces. And the reason for that is that for me personally, I want as few steps as possible between start and finish. So for me, that is why I do my grids on the back, because I can leave them. All of these pieces that are up here on the wall, they all have grids on the back of them, and you can't see any of them. I don't bother trying to erase them or try to get them off, but because they're on the back of the piece, I can just leave them. And it's one less step for me to have to worry about. So yeah, as far as like if you not knowing if what you did was actually right, if it works for you, then it's right. Like that's what cross stitching is. If it works for you, it's good enough. That's it. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need, there's no one right way to do it. So I hope that helps. And as always, happy stitching.